All right, welcome back everybody to the formulajonah YouTube channel for another live stream. We are back to discuss the fantastic races we've been having this last week. The 6 Hours of Imola and Grand Prix of Long Beach have taken place, and yeah, let's get into this. So, I'm formulajonah, the person who's behind this channel's creation and all that sort of thing. And I'm joined once again by David. If you're unfamiliar with who David is, he is someone who has been a motorsport enthusiast for quite some time and is also my co-host here on these live streams. So, David, welcome back to the live streams. First off, how are you doing as we head into another one of these broadcasts?
I'm doing better than ever. Glad to be back. It's been quite a while, but yeah, coming back and excited as always.
Well, it's good to have you back here. There's a lot to discuss in this one, but first off, thank you so much to everybody who's joined so far. The channel has been receiving some huge support over the last couple of weeks. I know they say this a lot, but it's true. We see a lot of enthusiasm for this channel's creation and just the continuation of this FJ YouTube channel. But again, if you are all new to this broadcast format and you're new to the channel as well, make sure to subscribe. This is definitely somewhere you want to be if you're an endurance racing fan. We're doing content on WEC and IMSA pretty much every single week, and we're also branching into other motorsports as well. We're going to be doing some coverage on the Nürburgring 24-hour race coming up very soon in, I believe, end of May. So that'll be very exciting, of course. But yeah, today we're talking about Imola. Today we're talking about Long Beach. These two incredible races. First off, they took place on the same weekend. This is our first weekend, I believe, in the 2024 year where the WEC and IMSA has taken place on the same weekend. So we got a lot of racing to catch up on, and of course. Thankfully, it wasn't a massive motor race in IMSA as it was in the WEC. We had a sprint race, as some people call it, over in Long Beach. But I want to start off with this live stream by talking about Imola. And David, as I mentioned, you've been a motorsport enthusiast about endurance racing, 24 Hours of Imola, all that sort of thing for quite some time. So you've been watching the WEC, that means, for a very long time. The 6 Hours of Imola has been regarded as one of the best races in 2024 and in the new golden era of motorsports. Across your time of watching the World Endurance Championship, would you consider the 6 Hours of Imola as the best race excluding the 24 Hours of Le Mans? Because Le Mans is always a very entertaining race, but if we were taking Le Mans out of the question here, was Imola the best race?
I feel like it's hard to compare WEC before Hypercar and after Hypercar because for sure we had some great races with the LMP1 cars. But I feel like every single race with the hypercars have been better, just because the competition have been so much better. And this is, yeah, peak performance of peak competition and racing, because we saw a fight between three car manufacturers for the win. And that's only the teams that had at some point gotten the lead in the race. We'll talk about that later as well. But yeah, I regard it as quite high on the list of great races. And excluding Le Mans, yeah, up there. But I feel like it's, yeah, you have to separate the two eras because WEC, when it started, had some great races. We had the whole time between Toyota, Porsche, and Audi.
Oh, yes.
That was always a great race as well. So yeah, but hypercar wise, absolutely the best race so far.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think in this new hypercar era, I think that it's interesting because hypercar has really brought in this new golden age, but you make a good point there that it's kind of a completely different era. You know, we had the LMP1 era and we had the hypercar era, and even besides the prototype categories, we've had the GT change. You know, this is LMGT3 now. totally different regulations to what we had previously, which was GTE. So it's definitely hard to compare, but I definitely agree, one of the best races. And let us know down in the comments as well, viewers, what you think. Was this the best race for you as a WEC fan? The 6 Hours of Imola, as it took over as probably the best race in 2024, I'd say. I mean, Qatar was definitely a very important race and very exciting one, but Imola was definitely entertaining.
And we're talking WC here because I don't want you forgetting that Daytona 24 hours.
That's true. Yeah. And that Daytona race was very entertaining. You know, I think I was as well as many of you, including you, David, on the edge of our seats during that final hour of Tom Blomqvist challenging Felipe Nasr in that number 7 Porsche and number 31 Cadillac battle. That was truly, truly incredible. But yeah, as of the WEC, I think this is surely the best race of the season. But yeah, let's get into it, because David, you mentioned that this was a race where we had 3 different manufacturers in the top fight for the win in the hypercar category. It was manufacturers including of Ferrari, Porsche, and Toyota. I mean, that is just absolutely amazing. If we think about taking a step back before hypercar was kind of invented, and say us back in 2017 talking about endurance racing and talking about the prospect of seeing a race lead battle between 3 iconic manufacturers of Toyota, Porsche, and Ferrari, all battling for overall victory and all having contention for that victory, is just absolutely incredible to think about. But yeah, all 3 were very, very impressive. And David, what would you say coming out of this race was the biggest surprise in terms of those manufacturers? Was it Porsche's strong pace in the race, or was it Ferrari's overall 1 lap pace, or ultimately Toyota taking overall victory?
I feel like it's no surprise that Toyota is up there every single time. We have to remember they won almost every single race last year. And I never doubted that that car still had pace. I just think the competition has just absolutely taken a notch up. Porsche, I feel like that's the car with the best race pace right now. I feel like they could have won this race as well, especially with Estra at the end of the race, really pacing forward. Ferrari was probably the biggest surprise for me because they looked very, very poor in Qatar. They had so many problems. So seeing them dominating qualifying and practice, and having a really good start to the race was really surprising. And them doing a Ferrari, normally they don't do that in WC, but poor strategy call. Something we unfortunately used to see Ferrari doing. But yeah, I feel like on another day they could have won this race as well, and that's the biggest surprise for me. If we look only at hypercar, because GT Le Mans also had something crazy going on down there, and that's another takeaway point we have to mention, because racing right now, it's easy to talk only about hypercar because it's hypercar. Right. It's the fastest class, but the GT class is also really, really competitive.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. We have LMGT3, which is performing at a super high level, and as you mentioned, kind of often gets disregarded at times, at least GT racing, compared to the new LMH and LMDH regulations, which are, of course, very, very incredible and very exciting to see out on track. But LMGT3 proved to have some very impressive battles, impressive strategies, impressive teams out there. We'll get into that, of course, later on as we talk about a few of these manufacturers. But I was going to mention as well, you mentioned that Ferrari really showed strong pace here in Imola. Maybe it's because of their home crowd, the Tifosi, bringing the support. You know, Ferrari is located just down the road, really, from the Imola circuit. This is their home race, so maybe they got a lot of that enthusiasm and that passion to perform at the best. But ultimately, I think it's also the BOP that favored the 499P. Qatar proved that Toyota and Ferrari were both affected by the balance of performance. These were two manufacturers that were struggling, and we had not often see them struggle, at least in the 2023 season. They were usually the manufacturers to beat in each of their races, and this was pretty much the first event where we saw Toyota and Ferrari not in contention really for the win in the WEC Qatar event. Well, at least Ferrari was in contention at the start of the race, but it was Porsche and even Peugeot that was up there fighting for the victory. But here in Imola, I think the BOP was much better compared to Qatar, if I'm being honest. And we got to see an incredible fight. We got to see the BOP in effect and the strong performance by these three manufacturers. But it wasn't just them performing well. I think we had another manufacturer that really did amazingly well, and I think that was BMW. Fantastic work from Team WRT. I just want to say that real quickly, not just in the hypercar category, but in LMGT3 as well. BMW were on fire during that entire weekend of endurance racing competition. And it's just great to see them up there. You know, this is the manufacturer that is just entering the hypercar category. This is just their second race with the M Hybrid V8 in the top class of the WEC. So it's absolutely amazing to see them up there. Of course, they weren't able to challenge for overall victory on a consistent basis, but they were comfortably the fourth fastest team. Could we say that they were the fourth fastest team overall, or was there another manufacturer that was performing a little better?
I feel like BMW has taken a huge step this weekend, because yeah, they were almost best of the rest at Qatar, but I feel like obviously BMW want to win Le Mans, want to be dominating this, be fighting for victories.
Oh yeah.
And if we look at BMW's history in endurance racing, yeah, they have had the fastest car for Le Mans before. They have been dominating GT racing in other championships, but this is like the first time where in this modern era that BMW is actually fighting with some of the top guys. There's a gap between, I feel like the best, like Peugeot was a bit of an outsider at Qatar, but I feel like there's a gap between Ferrari, Porsche, and Toyota, and then the rest of the teams. And that's maybe because those three top teams have just gotten a really good package for their cars. And then BOP can mix it up sometimes. But yeah, I agree. BOP was better this time. I think we're gonna see Peugeot being faster again. I feel like the track didn't suit the car. But they talked about that the new car made it drivable around this track, where the old car would not have been drivable around this track. So yeah, I feel like BMW, Alpine, Peugeot would probably be fighting for fourth overall a lot this season.
Yeah, and on the subject of Peugeot, I mean, another factor as well was the car's brand new to the WEC, and then also the 9X8s were involved in that first lap incident, mainly the number 94 car, so that set that entry back a bit. And then another factor as well is BOP. The balance of performance didn't really help Peugeot this weekend, and it's interesting to think about that because in Qatar, they were pretty much the best when it came to the balance of performance. And I'm actually just going to pull up the BOP graph so you can see what we're talking about here. As we can see on our screen right now, the Hypercar BOP had Peugeot right at the back when it came to weight. Their car was the heaviest out on track, and it wasn't the greatest on power either. So, and by the way, this is the graph before the PNG file came out for the new 9X8. So I have the old 9X8 on this graph. But yeah, Peugeot
definitely
wasn't helped by the BOP coming into this race. It was unfortunate to see Peugeot not being able to fight for the overall victory, but it was kind of expected to see them kind of not really getting used to this, considering that car is brand new. Peugeot is just brand new to this, and there's no way they could really come out of the doors and really say, okay, we're going to battle for overall victory and win this race. This is more of a race or a learning race for the French auto manufacturer. But hopefully they'll be able to perform better in future events, most likely at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Spa could be hard for them considering last year's event for the 9X8, but who knows? We'll see how it all unfolds. But yeah, I think we should also mention that the cars and just the in general race was not just about the actual cars itself, but it was about the rain, because we had the rain come in for the very first time in a race since the 24 Hours of Le Mans. I think that was the last time when we had rain affect the race. So it's very interesting to see that come in, and that was definitely a major factor, wasn't it, David?
Yeah, yeah. In the end, that I feel like that was what lost Ferrari the race. It reminded me a bit of the 2013 Le Mans. It was raining to that extent that the track was wet. It was tricky conditions, but it was not at the point where intermediate or wet tires were faster. But it was right at that crossover time. So I can't fault Ferrari for trying to do something. I could maybe fault them for doing it with both cars. They had the opportunity to do a split strategy, but yeah, in the end they overcommitted in my opinion. Yeah, but yeah, rain had the effect that made Toyota also win, because Toyota and Porsche were fighting like behind the Ferraris before the rain came. Because I feel like Ferrari would have just dominated the race like we saw the Porsche do in Qatar. For a race like this, where a track is so difficult to overtake at, then putting rain in there as well just makes the race way more interesting. It's like raining at Monaco.
Yes.
Monaco is normally a very, very boring race, in my opinion. But putting the rain in there, it all changes. And it's the same thing that happened here. This could easily have become one of those really boring races where one team went away with it and took the race win by a mile, and everybody else would lag behind. It didn't come out that way. So yeah, interesting, at least for us as viewers, because we always like a surprise, and that was one of my biggest surprises, at least.
I think it made the race very entertaining as well. I think it was very good to see something different. You know, I think we've had many WEC events in this hypercar era where it was just all sunny, you know, and that's great and all, but to throw in another factor of rain into a race that's already difficult, you know, this is the first event where top level prototypes have been in the Imola circuit since 2011. I mean, that was the last time when it was Peugeot and Audi battling for overall victory in the Intercontinental Le Mans Cup event. So to see that these new prototypes not only had to manage the Imola circuit for the very first time, and to have a circuit so difficult as Imola prove to be already tough, but to have rain come on as well and be another factor just made the race more difficult. And we saw many spins out there. I think some of the entries that were affected were the number 12 Hertz Team Jota Porsche, the number 11 Isotta Fraschini entry. Those two entries I think went off a few times, unfortunately. The 93 Peugeot, I remember an onboard of that car going off at the final turn 19. And thankfully it didn't result in a massive crash for Jean-Eric Verne, I believe was the driver at the time. But yeah, rain affecting the race as always, and changing things up. And I think if the rain didn't hit, we would have seen a different winner. I think that's something that I can confidently say. But I think this is a good point to mention Ferrari. my goodness, this is a race where they had so much support. They were looking very strong, arguably their best chance to take overall victory since the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2023 last year. And I think it's kind of easy to mention and just unfortunate to say as well, but they blew it. You know, this was Ferrari's chance of taking overall victory, and it just didn't work out. And that's, of course, endurance racing. That's how it goes. We see this stuff before where a team or a driver or a manufacturer takes a risk with a strategy or something like that, and it just doesn't pay off, and that's just racing. But Ferrari qualified first, second, and third. Arguably one of the coolest things to see in the WEC so far this season. Home heroes Ferrari qualify first, second, and third. That's quite the newsletter, I guess, to say. But all three cars didn't pit for the rain. I believe all hypercars pit for wet tires when the rain came out, except the number 5 Porsche Penske and the 3 Ferraris. Now, Ferrari is run by AF Corsa, so this is also AF Corsa putting strategy on the 3 Ferraris. And why Ferrari messed this up was because of they thought the rain was going to go away. You know, they thought that the rain was only going to stay here for a while. They just took a very risky call by leaving their 3 Ferrari 499Ps out on track on dry tires when the rain was coming down, to hopefully get out in front once the rain went away. So honestly, I can see Ferrari's logic here. Ferrari, of course, has logic in leaving the cars out. Honestly, though, I think what should have happened on that first call for pit stops is they should have broken the strategy between their two factory entries and maybe left the 83 car out. So maybe brought in the 51 Ferrari and left the 50 and 83 car out on their strategy. But basically, they should have just separated the two strategies if they were going to go that, or just go full on with the wets like the other cars out on track. Ultimately, though, it just didn't work out. And the commentators mentioned this as well. They said it was Ferrari or Toyota's race to lose. Whoever pit onto the tire, that would be the manufacturer to basically take victory. And that's exactly what happened. Ferrari stayed out. It didn't work out for them. Toyota went in, and same with Porsche, and it worked out for those two manufacturers. So it just worked out, I guess, for them, but it didn't work out for Ferrari.
Yeah, I agree. I also mentioned it because they have the opportunity. They have both cars up there fighting for the win.
Right.
There is no reason to go all out on one strategy. It never, like in these scenarios, they had all the chances of winning. It was there to lose. I actually don't agree with the commentators saying that it was also Toyota, because it was not. They were counting on Ferrari messing up.
That's true.
But Ferrari was dominating this one. And the only reason Toyota won this race, except they had great pace. I'm not saying that it didn't deserve the win, because they did, but Ferrari gave them the win. In my opinion, they should have. Obviously, I'm a Dane, and I will never say in hindsight that number 50 should not have pit. I would like them to win, but yeah. I feel like split strategy has to be used in that scenario. It doesn't make sense. Anything else doesn't make sense now.
Yeah, it was a huge risk by Ferrari, of course, to do that. And as I mentioned before, I do agree. It should have been a split strategy by Ferrari, of course. But hey, we take these risks, and sometimes it doesn't pay off. And I think that Ferrari will hopefully learn from that and come back stronger, as all manufacturers that make a mistake or something like that do. You know, this isn't like a lose situation. It's also a gain, because they learn from this. They gain experience from this, and they can use that experience for if rain comes into the 24 Hours of Le Mans and a similar situation approaches itself. Ferrari maybe will use what they learned in Imola for the WEC's big event, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. That's another reason why the WEC is so interesting, and the rounds before Le Mans are so interesting, because it's kind of like a practice race for Le Mans. even though it's like these races are very crucial for the championship. They're huge for endurance racing, but it's also a preparation for the 24 Hours of Le Mans to use what they learned from those first 3 races and put it to good use in the big event. But yeah, that's how it goes. The strategy didn't work out for Ferrari. End of story. And Porsche and Toyota benefited from that. And I just want to mention the number 7 car because, wow, what a perfect race from Toyota, from Toyota Gazoo Racing, and the entire crew. Nick DeVries, Mike Conway, and Kamui Kobayashi, all 3 drivers put in excellent stints, and the entire team just did brilliant. I think what we saw with the strategy and what we saw with just pretty much the entire performance of the GR010 was experience. Toyota Gazoo Racing is the most experienced team in the hypercar category in terms of participating in that category. Toyota is also the most experienced manufacturer in the WEC, as they have been in the championship since 2012. They have learned through this period, and the GR010 is now in its 4th season of competition. So no wonder Toyota is going to be on the top. I think we're seeing, I think in Imola, we saw that experience come into play. We saw that experience allow Toyota and the team to be able to take the victory with the number 7 car. And also the drivers, like I said, performed really good. Nick DeVries making the move on, I think it was Miguel Molina, I believe, in the 50 Ferrari at the restart. That was perfect timing from Nick DeVries and proves how good of a driver he is, and eventually got the jump, I believe, into 2nd position temporarily. So yeah, super well-deserved victory for the number 7 Toyota, and just fantastic race all around. The entire 6-hour event was just absolutely incredible performance from the Toyota Gazoo Racing crew.
Yeah. As much as I don't want to say it looked like Audi in their prime time back in the 2010s and the 2000s, because they had a flawless race. Everything went their way. But yeah, they also earned it. They have that experience. It's arguably their best lineup as well. Yeah. There is a rookie in Nick DeVries, but Nick DeVries is a world champion in Formula E. He has, although unsuccessfully, driven in Formula 1. He has been with Toyota for a long time. This isn't like someone coming in out of nowhere. He has been with Toyota for a long time. And that team is the team to beat when strategy calls have to be made, because their car may not be the fastest this year, but the team are the fastest this year. I feel like it's gonna, like, this is a great indicator of if rain comes and if these weird scenarios comes at Le Mans, then Toyota will have the upper hand. But only if it's rain like this, in my opinion, because last year at Le Mans we saw it as well, that rain came, but it was a downpour. It was so much rain. This time it was always a bit iffy with the rain. That's also why in the end Ferrari made a mistake, in my opinion. That's down to experience, even though of course it is a really experienced team in WEC as well. It's not in Hypercar. It's not at that race general leading positions, nowhere near as experienced as Toyota. But I feel like an indicator for Le Mans, and if we're talking Le Mans, the next race at Spa is always the best indicator. Now we don't have Sebring anymore,
right?
So everything has to go around Spa. If you're fast at Spa, you're fast at Le Mans. We saw with Ferrari last year. They were extremely good at Spa, and they were fighting Toyotas for the win. What happened at Le Mans? Toyota and Ferrari fighting for the win. It's quite easy. Obviously, you can't take the result and copy paste it over to Le Mans, but it is a great indicator of who's going to fight for the overall victory. But yeah, it's almost annoying. It's like watching Red Bull Formula 1 just pulling off the perfect race, this was the perfect race for Toyota.
Yeah, that's a good point. But at least it's not Red Bull. The start of the race happens, and then it's literally that meme where it's like the race begins, and then Max Verstappen wins the Chinese Grand Prix or whatever. At least it's not that. And Red Bull, no disrespect to Red Bull, I mean they've done a fantastic job with these regulations. Anyway, though, we're going into Formula One. We should stick back to endurance racing because this is what this stream is for.
My fault.
No. It's good. It's good. It's relevant, considering everything. But it's true. I mean, Toyota Gazoo Racing are the team to beat. I was just going, so I'll let you all know on a little secret here. I am working on a video detailing the battle for the championship between 3 different manufacturers in Hypercar, Ferrari, Toyota, and Porsche. And I was going over things, and Ferrari, the thing that they lacked in 2023 was experience. They had consistency with the 499P. They had pace with it. Very strong car. Everything was really going well for the 499P. What Ferrari of Corsa lacked was experience. As David mentioned before, of Corsa is new to Hypercar. While they are an experienced team, they have not raced in the top category. Ferrari, before 2023, hadn't been in prototype endurance racing with a factory effort since 1973 when they raced with the 312 PB, I believe that car was called, in the 73 season of endurance racing. So Ferrari coming into this is definitely lacking experience, even though they are one of the greatest motorsport brands to ever exist. It's interesting. But anyway, we've been talking about Toyota, we've been talking about Ferrari, we've been talking about Porsche for quite some time. What about the other manufacturers in Hypercar? We mentioned BMW a moment ago, and we mentioned Peugeot. But that crash at the start affected a few of these brands' races. One of them was Alpine. Really difficult race for Alpine, I gotta say. The car was consistent. It was not really bad on reliability or anything like that, as we saw in Qatar, but wasn't really anywhere to fight with the overall victory. And they didn't have pace in qualifying either. Although those entries were affected by the red flag at the end of qualifying, so it's possible drivers and teams were able to get their solid laps in at the end. But arguably, Alpine just didn't have the pace, to challenge for the top manufacturers. They didn't seem to have the pace to battle with BMW. And then Lamborghini took steps forward. I would say they did take steps forward. Car was looking very competitive. I believe the BOP kind of helped them out as well. But the SC63 seemed to have a lot more pace than it did in Qatar. This track, Imola, suited that SC63 a lot more than the Losail International Circuit in Qatar. But overall, Lamborghini, out of the 4 new manufacturers, BMW was top. I feel Lamborghini had a better race car than Alpine this race, even though there was only one compared to 2 A424s.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alpine is doing really well this season. Obviously, only 2 races in, and BMW, even though it's the first 2 races for WRT as a BMW hypercar, BMW have had a whole year in IMSA. Alpine has not, and Lamborghini has not as well. Seeing those teams actually performing and putting up good pace, in my opinion, in this first year is really interesting. I feel like this first year, and I mentioned it before as well, this is like a learning year. But seeing these cars already fighting for good points and good positions in the race just shows how much competitiveness there is in this class, and how well BOP is working. Or BMP,
balance of performance. BOP.
Yeah. Not yeah. So just having that into the matter as well, just creates such a great championship. And having it now, we have a top part of the field and a midfield, and then ultimately we also have the slowest cars. But even that, Isotta Fraschini, I need to mention them as well. Even though it wasn't a great race for them, it was so much better than Qatar. They were up there. They were fighting with people. It didn't end well, but they were fighting. That was so nice to see. And they didn't finish absolutely last every single part of the race. So yeah, fighting at least, and seeing these new teams fight and getting points, and obviously it's also a great lineup. So it just comes up and puts in such a good championship, and Alpine is going to win races next year. I have no doubt in my mind about it.
That's a good point to mention as well. And this kind of goes well with a comment that just came through saying, I think Alpine has a chance to win, but they need experience. And David, you were mentioning this earlier on that this is a learning year for these manufacturers in hypercar. So it is really about gaining experience with their hypercars out on track, like Alpine, like Lamborghini, like Isotta Fraschini. But like the thing is that BMW has experience from IMSA, so that's going to help out. And RLL and WRT work well together in exchanging information from both series, so that's great as well. So BMW should have the upper hand throughout the rest of the season, which is good. Isotta Fraschini, definitely good to mention them, as David was pointing out. Huge improvements from the Tipo 6 LMHC and huge improvements from Isotta Fraschini Duquesne overall. I think one factor that really stood out for me in their progression is very minimal reliability issues. Now, I could be wrong here, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they suffered a massive reliability issue during this race. The car didn't really need to go into the garage at all. Now, I think that's down to a few facts. I think that's Isotta Fraschini taking the data from Qatar and really learning from that. And making improvements overall, but I also think it's because they've done a lot of testing here at the Imola circuit. They've done some testing in the past, I think in 2023. I can't remember the exact date, but that surely helped the performance of the Tipo 6 LMHC. And remember, Isotta Fraschini is brand new into prototype racing, so they're going to need a few races, and this goes the same for Lamborghini as well. Both manufacturers are brand new into this, and it's going to take them some time to get up to speed. Alpine has competed before with the with the A480, and before as well in LMP2. So they have experience, and like I mentioned before, BMW has as well. But Lambo and Isotta Fraschini are going to need some time to get up to speed, and I don't think they're going to be really challenging for like huge results until maybe later in the season, like around the Rolex 6 Hours of Sao Paulo, potentially. Maybe that's where they'll start being a little bit more competitive, but we'll see. I think Isotta Fraschini, the issue that surrounded them was really, and this is no disrespect to anybody, driver mistakes. I think there was a few driver mistakes out on track, but then again, even though we had, I think it was Carl Watana Bennett that went off at, what was that corner? The chicane. I can't remember the name of it. There's lots of different names of Imola, but anyway, to be fair, to these drivers, this is conditions that they're kind of new to. This circuit is very challenging, and to have the rain on top of that, and to already see experienced drivers going off as well, that just proves how difficult the conditions were out there. So yeah, it's understandable why they were struggling out there on track, especially in the rain period. But overall, I think that those were the only main issues for Isotta Fraschini's hypercar. Unless I'm forgetting something.
No, I feel like for teams like Lambo, Alpine, Isotta, this year is all about finishing the races, getting as many laps in race pace. Because you mentioned that Isotta had tested a lot around Imola. That is a plus, but there is such a big difference between testing the car and racing the car. And seeing them finish the race is the biggest win. It's almost as good as a win for those kind of teams this year. That and the plus of being competitive in their part of the track and in their part of the field is
right.
It's a really good sign for what's to come. but I don't think that we're gonna see anything special from those teams this year. Lambo could really take a notch upwards and have an upwards going trajectory. uh, but yeah, I don't see them really fighting for anything this year other than completing the races. And the next two races is really important for that, because Spa is a really tough race to complete as well. And obviously Le Mans is the biggest race at all. And we saw it with Porsche back in 2014, just finishing the race is such a massive boost at the team. I mean, they had their 919s parked in the garage for so long, but just rolling them out, taking that final lap, and finishing the race was important. So, yeah, I feel like this year I would be so happy to see them finish Le Mans, and that's all I ask for them, and everything else is a bonus.
Yeah, I agree. That's the I think the goal as well for them. You know, Le Mans is quite the long race. You know, it's the biggest race of the WEC. So to finish Le Mans is already a huge step forward. I think that's one of the factors. I mean, we saw that with Nissan in the 2015 days as well. They struggled so much with the GT car, or the GTR. Sorry, I think that's the LMP1 car, whatever the name of it is. I can't remember. It only raced for one race.
It was shit, so
it wasn't very good. No, it wasn't not very good. Anyway, they just wanted to get to the end, you know, and survive. And to survive was even an achievement. So we'll see. But anyway, we've talked about Hypercar. We need to talk about LMGT3 because performance from all manufacturers was very strong. I think we had some very good racing, but the manufacturer that was on top was BMW. Again, BMW showing that they have the pace. Team WRT pulling off an unbelievable result with the two WRT entries. The 31 car winning the race. The 46 car, the Valentino Rossi car, finishing in second position. And the 92 Manthey Porsche in third. Now, I believe Manthey Porsche still, the number 92 car still maintains the championship lead. But those BMWs, first and second, in a competitive category like LMGT3, it's just fantastic. You know, we have 9 manufacturers in this category, and to see one brand who is just entering the WEC for the first time since like the GTE Pro days, to come away with a first and second position is absolutely phenomenal. So congratulations to BMW on their performance during this entire race. And I gotta mention as well, this is the first win for BMW in the GT category, and I think in the WEC overall. So that's great as well. Huge respect to them on achieving that fantastic result. And I was gonna mention something else. I can't remember. Oh yeah, the 46 car, the Valentino Rossi car, which was getting a ton of support, and of course, who wouldn't? It's the doctor, you know, he's the legend himself. That car was in the lead. That car was going to win the race, and then I think it was hit with a drive-through penalty, if I'm not mistaken, which set them down the order. Thankfully, they maintained their position in the podium, but they didn't maintain the lead. But the good news coming out of that is that they lost the lead to their teammates, which is not too bad. To have a BMW 1-2 still, even after a drive-through penalty, is pretty remarkable.
If you have to lose the lead to anybody, then the teammates are the best car to lose to.
Exactly.
We have to remember this is not like, we mentioned before, this is not Formula One.
Right.
There's like it's so much more a team race than a individual driver or individual drivers in this scenario. It's so much more about the team winning than just the one car that we support winning. Because in the end, WRT don't care if it's Valentino Rossi or can't remember any names from the other car right now. They don't care as long as they get the win, and getting a 1-2 even better. So yeah, I gotta mention Porsche in GT because Manti Racing is doing so well. I mean, to no surprise, because that 911 has always been at the top of GT racing.
Oh
One
yeah.
team I was really surprised by in qualifying was Iron Dames in the Lamborghini, because they had problems around Qatar. They didn't finish the race, but they were very competitive, and that was so good to see because it's a new car for them. Yeah, they raced it in IMSA, but it's a new car for that team right now and in this championship. So seeing them perform already at the top spot in a GTLM was great to see, because we know how good that driver lineup is, and for sure when they get that new car down to a T, then it's going to be really competitive, and another car and another team to add to that competitive field. I mean, TF Sports had a great Qatar qualifying, and I believe they're going to be fast at Spa as well. Lexus, decent pace this weekend. BMW, obviously the winning car, but Porsche was dominating qualifying. So it's it's a bit up there every single race. Who's going to win GT? And that's great to see after last year where I mean it was Aaron Dames finishing second, and I think it was Corvette winning every single time
That's
almost.
true.
So so seeing this new competitive field also in GT is great to see.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to see how competitive the LMGT3 category is. I think, as you mentioned, and as another comment mentioned, Lamborghini had a good qualifying, but a poor race. It was not a good race for either of the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo entries. Um, and I think Damian, you as well also mentioned that Lexus had a really decent pace, to quote the comment in the comment section. But yeah, Lexus definitely stronger pace than Qatar, which was nice to see. Overall, Lexus had a great weekend. We'll get into that a little bit more later on when we talk about Long Beach. But the fact is that I think a country, I'm going to say country because overall the country's manufacturers didn't really perform well. America's Corvette, Chevrolet, and then the Ford entries wasn't a great race for those two American manufacturers. But in the Ford camp, it wasn't really down to like reliability. It wasn't really down to like mistakes out on track. It was down to another issue that was very strange. The car kept disintegrating out on track. And this was not a first or only occurrence. This was a multiple thing that happened specifically to the number 88 black and gold Proton competition Ford. The 77 car ran a little bit better, but the 88 Ford, I remember watching the TV and there was something hanging off the back, and then they fixed it. And I was like, okay, good. And then later on, it happened again. I was like, again, how can this happen again? So that car really struggling to keep all the parts on, and this is not a thing that we've seen happen only at Imola. This is something that's happened before with the Ford Mustang GT3s. They're brand new, so
Yeah,
we have to give them that.
Daytona as well.
Right.
Yeah, Daytona. I mean, it it seems like they have some kind of vibration problem. That's the only way I can explain it, because normally the car wouldn't just fall apart.
Right.
um, and it's a new car, completely new car in GC racing. So it will always be having these weird problems. That's completely normal for a new car. But I have never, with no explanation, seen that happen either. It's a bit weird, um, and dangerous, of course. I mean, we can't have cars falling apart just racing.
Yeah, that's definitely dangerous. It's to have something hanging off the back and there's lots of GT cars behind. That could that could really take someone out of the race and could potentially be dangerous on the injury side of things, which would of course not be good. So I think that's why the black and orange flag came out for the Ford. I believe it did later
Yeah,
on,
it did.
but yeah, okay, good. So that's good. But yeah, LMGT3 finishing with the BMWs out in front, 31 car. There was a lot of support for Sean Galale, who's in that 31 car as well. So great to see him up there. Another name on that list is Augusto Farfus, who of course drove the 24 BMW and IMSA last season. Great win for him. And just the whole BMW crew, fantastic work. And the 92 Porsche on the podium once again. It wasn't a win this time, but it was third position. And as you mentioned, David, the Manthey number 92 car really going strong this season. The 91 car, on the other hand, not really going so well. They've had some issues in Qatar and Imola. Before we move on, I want to quickly point out, I'm going to bring up Imola results for the hypercar category. As you can see on our screen, this is the full results for the hypercar class. The number 7 Toyota coming home in first position, followed by the number 6 Porsche and number 5 Porsche completing the top 3, with the 50 Ferrari in 4th, the number 8 Toyota in 5th, the 20 BMW in 6th, the 2 Ferraris, the factory ahead of the customer entry, in 7th and 8th. Then we had the number 93 Peugeot, and then completing the top 10 was the number 2 Cadillac. Now, this entry we hadn't really talked about a lot, but I'll just quickly mention it. It didn't have a great race. Cadillac not showing strong pace, but then again, this is the first time that American team Chip Ganassi Racing has come to Imola and raced at the event. And it just didn't work out for Cadillac during this event. I believe they had the lightest car out on track, but still things just didn't go well. They were hit from behind by, I believe, the number 94 Peugeot. So maybe they had some issues on the back of the car from that contact, or maybe they just, I don't know, just weren't able to challenge the Ferraris and Porsches and Toyotas for the lead, I guess.
Yeah, as much as Cadillac is arguably the fastest car in IMSA, it's nowhere near that pace in WEC. And it's also interesting to see what's going to happen with that car and that team.
That's true.
Because Chip Ganassi is out. They're not going to continue the project. So it's also going to be a completely new team next year and not getting the results that they really would expect. It's a bit of a weird one for me. But yeah, it seems as though that car just loves to get into trouble in the first lap at the start of the race, because it also happened at Qatar. So yeah, it's weird because they're running so smoothly in IMSA and just not finding their way in WEC yet. Obviously, it's two different BOP systems, but still, I mean, it doesn't make sense for me.
Well, that's a good transition point as well, because you mentioned Cadillac doing super well in IMSA, but not totally well in the WEC, although they did secure 4th in Qatar. Unfortunately, though, that car was disqualified, so it didn't really matter, I guess. But that's a good transition point, because we're heading into, I guess, our talking points on Long Beach, because Imola, of course, was the big event. That's why we kind of scheduled this stream. We were going to talk about Imola, but it was not the only endurance racing event happening during the weekend. The Grand Prix of Long Beach, or Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach to include the sponsor, happened, I believe, on Saturday. And just before that, the IMSA event, round 3 of the championship, had 27 cars out on track, including the GTD and GTP categories. And as David mentioned, Cadillac is doing really good in IMSA, and they truly are. What a fantastic race from Cadillac from both teams in the Long Beach event. Whelen Engineering's Action Express team, the 31 car, super strong pace. Pipo Derani putting the car on pole position in LMGT3. Oh, sorry, not in LMGT3, in GTP. Sorry, I got mixed up there. But the 31 Cadillac had pressure from the sister Cadillac, the 01 car. And this race was a sprint race. It wasn't as long as the 6 Hours of Imola, but it really was decided in the pit lane.
Yeah, a classical Long Beach. I mean, it wasn't as interesting as we normally see it, but again, a really heavy on strategy kind of race. In the end, Cadillac did what Porsche did last year. They didn't stop for tires, and that got them the win in the end. Because Porsche could also easily have gotten the win. Again, Porsche just doing really well everywhere in endurance racing lately. We're also going to talk about it ahead of Nürburgring, but but yeah, a not that interesting race in my opinion. But just kind of like as much as Ferrari messed up, messed up their strategy around Imola, Cadillac did the perfect thing around Long Beach.
Yeah, Cadillac pulling off a fantastic result. The 01 car taking the victory. Chip Ganassi on top for the first time on the streets of Long Beach since 2022 when they took the victory with the same driver lineup, different car um, in the DPI era. So fantastic, of course, to see them back out on top, and great to see the 01 Cadillac, which has been having some horrible luck across its existence in GTP. That car has truly been having some difficult times out on track. That was mainly in 2023 though, so hopefully 2024 will be different. And we're heading to a track next that that 01 car took victory at last year, the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. For the Motocourse de Monterey, that's definitely going to be a track where I think we're going to see Cadillac potentially taking a victory once again. They're definitely the manufacturer to beat. But the way that the 01 Cadillac won, as David pointed out, was that they won when they didn't pit for tires. So Cadillac's Chip Ganassi crew decided to pit for a driver swap, a fuel, like they got more fuel in the V Series R, but they didn't pit for tires, where the 31 car also pit for tires. Ultimately, Rango Vandazana in the 01 Cadillac got ahead of Pipo Derani in the 31 Cadillac and was able to stretch a little bit of a gap to Jack Aiken. But it would ultimately be a very big risk considering that they didn't have new tires on, where the Cadillac had a little fresher tires. So towards the end of the race, Rango would have to defend like crazy to keep that 31 Cadillac behind, and potentially the Porsches as well, as they were very quick. David mentioned just a moment ago that Porsche are having an unbelievable start to 2024 into the GT ranks and the prototype ranks. It's been absolutely on fire, and once again, the number 7 Porsche came home with a podium, with the number 6 car in 4th, and the number 5 Porsche in 5th. This is actually a good point to mention the results. I'll bring that up on screen right now. So the 01 Cadillac took first with the 31 car in second. Thankfully, the 01 car, for Chip Ganassi's sake, held off Jack Aiken in that 31 car to be able to take the victory here in Long Beach. The number 7 Porsche, followed by the 6 and the 5, as I mentioned previously. The 24 BMW in 6th, with the JDC Miller Porsche in 7th, followed by the 10 Acura, the 25 BMW, and finally the number 40 WTR Acura, which won Sebring. And that's a good point to mention Acura. As a comment mentioned, the Acura curse continues. My goodness, what a difficult race for WTR's Acura's cars. It is so unfortunate to see what happened to them. The number 40 car, which won the 12 Hours of Sebring, out of the race due to a crash at turn 1. Big wreck for Louis Delatraz. Thankfully, he was okay. That was mainly one of our only crashes. I think that's our only crash in GTP, excluding the chaos at the hairpin. More on that later on, of course. Yeah, it's very interesting to see that Acura are having this difficult season start. It's unfortunate too because last year it was already difficult from what we saw, but it wasn't as difficult and wasn't as tragic, I guess is the word I'm going to use to describe this 2024 season as this season, because Acura, both entries weren't as competitive in Daytona. And I believe the number 10 car retired from that race. The 40 car did finish on the podium, but didn't have the ability to challenge for the overall victory. Sebring was different, of course, a highlight for Acura taking the victory, but here in Long Beach, both cars finishing down in the top, down in the bottom 8. And the number 40 car out, like I mentioned, the number 10 car involved in a further incident with the JDC Miller Porsche that got them a drive-through penalty. So, David, what do you think of Acura? I mean, this is a pretty difficult start to the season, and can they bounce back from this difficult start in Laguna Seca, where they have won previously in the DPI era?
I feel like when you mention it being a bad start, it's obviously because we have so much expectation of that team and that car.
Right.
Last year, dominating Daytona, Um, doing, in my opinion, yeah, they didn't do as well at Daytona. They didn't win the race, but finishing on the podium in a 24-hour race is still a really good result. They did really well in Sebring. I mean, I think they won the race.
Yeah.
Just yeah. And then yeah, Long Beach not being the greatest race for them in any case, but yeah, don't count them out because it's a team that Wayne Taylor Racing is a really really good team. Um, Obviously, they also work together with Vendretti, which is not nobody in this in this sport. So saying that they're doing badly doesn't make any sense in my mind. Because if I was the team leader, I would say, yeah, we won Sebring, we had a bad Long Beach, and we finished on the podium in Daytona. We're going into the Laguna at an okay point. It's not ideal, but it's a really good start.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like it's the expectations that are so high, but we have to remember Cadillac and Porsche now really stepping on the pedal and really getting up there. And maybe it's a case of like we see with Toyota falling under pressure.
Yeah, you make a good point there because the expectations are really high for this team who have been seriously competitive. One of the favorites for the championship. I mean, WTR have finished runner up in pretty much the last 4 or 5 championships, which is seriously unfortunate as well. But I think the expectations are high because GTP is so competitive, arguably even more competitive than Hypercar. And that's probably down to the BOP, that's down to IMSA, that's down to the cars. It's down to a lot of factors, but yeah, I think the expectations are high, and so I would agree to say that it's not been a bad start, but it's just been um, more of a difficult start compared to last year. Because last year we had the Acuras finishing first and second in Daytona. Then at Sebring they were in contention for the win, then were basically taken out. And then in Long Beach, they were the favorites, took pole position with the number 10 car, led the majority of the race, and were on fire until the crash. They just got unlucky. But overall, they had the fastest car in each of the 3 events. In the first 3 events. Now they haven't had the fastest car in the first 3 events. So it's on that side. It's a little difficult to see that for Acura, but overall, it's not like a bad season start. They could definitely pull a win and potentially fight for the championship throughout the remainder of the season. I hope they do because it is seriously great to see them. Um, but Acura is not the only one having that had a difficult race in Long Beach. BMW. Oh, I think we just lost David accidentally. Let's see if we can get him back. Hold on a second. I wonder why we lost David. Well, that's weird. He just completely was gone. Hopefully he'll rejoin. I'm going to see if he can rejoin. But anyway, we had BMW really not really performing great in that race. And it was unfortunate to see them not performing good. Just give me a moment as I'm trying to get David back in here. I think he's going to join momentarily. Yep, there he is. Okay. Hey, David, I think we
I'm right
lost you for
here.
just a second, but you're
Yeah, yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. My browser just decided to close.
No
That was
worries.
kind of weird.
Well, anyway, I was just mentioning that BMW also had a difficult Long Beach event, and it's overall been a not super great, I would say, start to the season. They've had some performances and some great performances in recent events, but haven't been able to get the results. They haven't really been able to achieve the podiums yet. They haven't been on the podium yet. They've been in the position to be on the podium in arguably the first 3 events. But then bad luck. Bad luck strikes again for the third time. When will BMW catch a break? When will this team finally get the results that they've been promising? And I don't know. Will we see it at Laguna Seca? Will we see it at the race they won last year, the 6 hours of the Glen? Or will it be a different event? David, my question is, what's next for BMW? Will they be able to get the results they need?
I feel like BMW have to look at the positive side that they have started out this year stronger than last year.
Definitely.
Um, and even though they had such a bad start to last year, were in the contention of winning the championship. So yeah, I see it as BMW just fighting against really really good teams, and BMW being the new boy in the top class, in terms of manufacturers, because Acura, Cadillac have been obviously fighting in DPI as well. Porsche Penske is a top-notch team all around. Two great motorsporting names, and combining that is always going to be competitive. But
Definitely.
BMW in a top class car, like in a prototype, is not something that we are used to seeing that much. So seeing them performing, um, not winning necessarily, but doing really well every single time, this year, being up there, is such a huge step up. And I feel like they will get at least one win this year in IMSA. And I also see them finishing on the podiums in the WEC. Um, so so yeah, I just think they have decided to join a championship, and in some regulations that are not their normal kind of racing.
Yeah, the last
Um,
time BMW participated, sorry if I cut you off. The last time BMW participated in endurance racing, prototype endurance racing, I believe, was with the V12 LMR, right?
yeah, and that with Tom Christensen as well.
That's true.
Uh, just a small racing name, nobody knows. Um, but yeah, so they're obviously a huge motorsporting name, but not in endurance racing at the same way as Porsche, Acura, Cadillac. So mention WC Ferrari as well. Like, so everything they have impressed me a lot, so far, and I'm just looking forward to seeing them get even better, because I have no doubt in my mind that they're gonna fight for championships in both World Endurance and in IMSA.
I really want to see BMW do well. This is a brand that is highly respected in the motorsport and road car sales um, community. And I think
And
that
it's a beautiful car.
oh,
It's
for
a
sure.
beautiful car.
Yeah, BMW is a legendary car manufacturer. So I want to see them do well in prototype endurance racing. In IMSA, they've just gotten bad luck in these first three races. Retirements for the two cars in Daytona when they were fighting for the podium and the overall victory with the Porsche and the Cadillac. Sebring, the 25 car, could potentially take the win. It was on very strong form. And then there was contact with Julian Anlauer's number 5 Mustang sampling proton Porsche. Um, and then here in Long Beach, they were caught up in the chaos at the hairpin, which strikes once again. We had a chaos at that hairpin, which was very unfortunate. Of course, the number 6 Porsche being turned by the number 78 Forte Racing Lamborghini. And that just created a standstill parking lot. I think someone mentioned earlier a quick joke that says, "Hey, you can't park there, mate." That's basically what defined that hairpin section, because there was a few cars stopped there. So the 25 car got the worst of the damage, had to pit, and then later on there was another crash, and that car was basically out. The 24 BMW, meanwhile, finished 6th, though it wasn't a bad performance by RLL altogether. But arguably they were in contention for the overall victory, in contention for podiums in Long Beach, with the 25 car more than the 24, I would say. They just got unlucky, and I'm hoping that they come back stronger in Laguna Seca, my home race, a track I will be going to later on for the IMSA event. I want to see them do well, so we'll see how that goes. But we're wrapping up quickly because we're limited on time. But I want to mention the GTD class because there was some fierce battle going on in that category. But I specifically want to talk about Lexus. Fantastic race from the Vassar Sullivan Lexus crew. The 12 car encountered many issues. However, on the other side of the garage, it was almost a perfect race for the number 89 Lexus. this car took victory from start to finish, led the race. It was Parker Thompson and Ben Barnico that won the GTD class victory with that number 89 car. And if you're unfamiliar with the number 89 car, viewers, this entry doesn't race in the GTD class. It's typically the pro car. It just got entered in the GTD category as Vassar Sullivan Racing's second car, and they renamed it as the number 89 car to symbolize Lexus foundation as a car brand in 1989. So quick fact there, quick historical fact, and it's just a neat touch to see. And so it's kind of cool that it took victory with that number 89 badge in it. But David, I have to say, Lexus has been on fire in these first three races. They have arguably been the manufacturer to beat in GTD and Pro as well. Would you consider them as the manufacturer to beat in these categories? At least in the Pro class, they were very competitive. And then GTD, it was that 89, which was initially the 14.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was impressed by McLaren at some extent at Daytona, but they had a horror race at Sebring, and it just seems as though like Lexus is a very, very experienced team as well. So far they have had flawless races, and that's ultimately what you gotta have to win in endurance racing, especially around a track as Long Beach. Very short race, so you don't really have time to make up for mistakes throughout the race. But yeah, I just see it's weird because when you look at Lexus in WEC, struggling at the most of the time, and then look at the Vassar Sullivan team racing like it was just something they have done for the whole life. It's a weird thing, but yeah, definitely the team to beat right now in GTD and GTD Pro, and I'm interested in seeing who will really take the fight up to them, because right now it seems that they're going to run away with this championship.
Yeah, I mean, last year we had the 14 car taking victory in the championship in the pro category, and the 12 Lexus was also in the fight, although that number 1 Paul Miller Racing BMW was on fire throughout the season in GTD. I expect Corvette to come back stronger in Laguna Seca and potentially at Detroit as well. We'll see how that works out. I mean, it is Chevrolet's home Grand Prix in Detroit, and same with Ford. So I would hope that they would be competitive in that event. I'd hope they win, one of them at least. So we'll see. But yeah, Lexus clearly seems to be the favorites to win the majority of the races. They've been very strong in Daytona, Sebring, and now Long Beach as well with the 89 car and 12 if it didn't come into issues with the race that got penalized. Then it got a puncture, and it was just a terrible race for the 12 car. But on the other side, it was great for the 89. And I think in GTD, it's going to be a fight between the Windward Racing Mercedes also in there, because that car's won both of the GTD races in the Michelin Endurance rounds. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes with the Lexus crew. And it is fascinating to see that they're going good in IMSA, but not so far in the WEC. But we have to remember that Lexus is a brand new brand to the WEC, brand new car to the WEC, and it's also a completely different team. Akota's ASP team is running the Lexus cars in the WEC, and I think that this is a very well-experienced team, but overall, they are new to the WEC. They're new to LMGT3, so it's going to take some time for those cars to be more competitive. But we'll see. We'll see how that all goes. Anyway, though, we have wrapped up Imola and Long Beach. We've done a fantastic job of an hour and 17 minutes or so of talking about these events. I hope you all enjoyed our talk about this. We're going to be ending the stream shortly, but if you have any further questions you'd like to ask in the comment section, please do so now. We would love to respond. One of the key factors in these live streams is not just talking about endurance racing, but also talking to you, the viewers. You know, I want to make sure that we're interacting with you. And the way I think of it is like this. As someone who also watches YouTube online, whenever I'm in a live stream, one of the greatest things is to have somebody on the stream respond to me in chat. It's just so satisfying to have that. And so I want to gift what I want to you viewers, because I want to make sure that you are all being recognized the same way I would want to be recognized in a YouTube stream. So I will make sure to take a look at your comments. So while you all do that, we will be here for another 5-10 minutes or so. David, we've completed Imola, we've completed Long Beach. These two races are gone. We won't see them till 2025, at least in the WEC and IMSA. Next up is the 6 Hours of Spa, one of the greatest endurance races in the WEC, and also the Modal Course de Monterey at Laguna Seca. And unfortunately, they are on the same weekend. Now, this race weekend is not just about these two endurance racing series, but also Formula E. This means that drivers will be conflicting with that race. There's some racers like Eduardo Mortara that are actually going to be racing in Formula E, and there's Lamborghini's actually subbed in Andrea Caldarelli into the number 63 SC63. So there's going to be that, but also we won't see entries like the number 3 Cadillac that we saw at Spa last year at Spa this year, because that entry is racing, or that team and entry and driver lineup is all racing at Laguna Seca with the 01 crew. So that's why the number 3 Cadillac will not be at Spa like it was last year. I'm trying to remember if there was another entry at Spa last year. I don't think there was, besides like the Van Wall, the Glickenhaus, and the new Porsche. I think it was just the number 3 Cadillac that came in for that race. And of course at Le Mans, we'll see a lot of entries out on track. But yeah, David, what's next in terms of our schedule as well, for endurance racing? We're coming into May and June. We've talked about this before, being a lot of content to put out. But can you give us a hint about what we have planned coming in?
I can tell you it's a very long race. It's on the longest track in the world, and it's arguably the biggest GT race in the season. So very interesting. It's also going to be trying out coverage of how we're going to run Le Mans, and that's interesting. It's of course the Nürburgring we're talking about, and also we have coverage of obviously Spa and Laguna Seca, but Nürburgring next big race, and shortly after we have Le Mans. So really getting into the best part of endurance racing, and this is what we all look forward to. I just saw a post from World Endurance Championship on YouTube that we have waited long enough for Spa, and that's true. But yeah, we're diving into GT racing, but completely new for us. Still learning. So, but it's the biggest GT race of the year, and of course we're going to talk about it. But yeah, also just for you guys, if you missed anything of the live stream or any other live stream, then every single live stream is put up as a podcast on Spotify. Also, this one, it will come out shortly after when I get the time to put it up and get it all cut together. Then it will be out. But yeah, please go check them out and rate us on Spotify. That would mean a lot. But yeah, really interesting few streams and podcast episodes we're gonna get into. Yeah.
Link in the description down below, everybody, for the podcast, the Spotify channel. That's in the description down below of this video and all future videos as well. You can find that there, and also on the official formulajonah Discord server as well, which you can also join down in the description. But yeah, definitely follow the Spotify channel. And as David mentioned, we are going to be covering the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. This is the very first time that the Nürburgring is going to be featured on this channel in terms of like the content when it comes to the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. Last year in 2023, I got a lot of comments saying, is there any possibility of doing content in the future of the 24 Hours of Nürburgring? And I honestly missed out on doing that, and I wish I would have, but this is a new chance for me to do so. New chance for David and myself to get prepared for the 24 Hours of Le Mans as well. We're going to be testing some few things out, of course. But yeah, first time that the 24 Hours of Nürburgring is going to be heavily featured on this channel in terms of content. I know for sure that we have 3 videos coming out for the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. One of them is a race preview, one of them is a race review, and one of them is on previous endurance racing events at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in terms of that event specifically. But we have a few comments coming in as well. One of them says, which team do you think to run the caddies next year in the WEC? Jota, United, etc. most likely. So this is from RaceCac NL. David, which team do you think will run the Cadillac V Series R in 2024? And viewers, we will make this fast because we have a few more comments coming in, and we're going to be ending the stream momentarily.
I feel like Jota is having too much success with Porsche right now to do anything about that. But obviously, it would also be great for them to have their own car and not rely on Porsche. Interesting with United Autosports. I could see them, but ultimately, I think if they would join either Hypercar or GTP, it would be with a McLaren Hypercar, as we see Zach Brown obviously owning that team and also being the leader of McLaren F1. So yeah, I the only way I would see them race is with McLaren and Porsche. I could see, I can't remember the name. They ran a Acura last year at Daytona, won the race.
Meyershank Racing?
Yeah, I could see them actually running Cadillac because they've been out. They had a dispute with Acura, and I could see them running still and really being fast as always. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird way because I really thought that Chip Ganassi did well with that car. You mentioned that they aren't going to come to Spa with the number 3 car. I think that's probably for the best with last year's result for that car. Didn't end very well. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see who's going to run it. But yeah, my guess is Meyershank Racing.
That's a good guess. I like that one. I think it's interesting because Cadillac is likely going to have 2 cars in the WEC next season with whichever team enters. My guess is TF Sport is going to run these entries in 2024. They have already been connected with GM through the Corvette entries, and I think they could expand potentially also into the hypercar category. It's a big ask, you know. I think it's possible for United Autosports to potentially get involved, although, like David mentioned as well, it would be better for them to be with McLaren, you know, if they were potentially going to be entering the hypercar class in the near future. Another team could be Vector Sport, although I don't see it happening with Cadillac, at least. They did say that they are in negotiations with a manufacturer for 2025, whether that be with like a Peugeot or Ferrari, I don't know. And then of course there's like Meyershank Racing. There's Chip Ganassi Racing. You'll also have to get some entries. Of course they won't be Cadillacs, but we'll see if they can.
Andretti having a connection with them for the Formula One project.
Although Andretti is connected with Acura and with Wayne Taylor Racing, you know, so I don't know if they're going to be splitting. It's possible though. So David mentioned a good point there that Andretti could potentially get into this as well. Who knows? It's super fascinating. But yeah, we'll see with Cadillac which entries will be run by whichever team in 2024 of the WEC. Another comment coming in saying, did you hear the possibility of Toyota having a 3rd car in 2025? Now, this I think was the rumor over a separate team getting a third Toyota. Now, this could be an option for teams like Chip Ganassi Racing or TF Sport, or sorry, not TF Sport, Vector Sport. Maybe they could grab the Toyota, or maybe it would be a team that races in like a Japanese series, like over in Super GT or something like that. I don't know. Is it possible we could see a third Toyota, David, in 2024? And if it does come, would it be run by Toyota Gazoo Racing, or would it be a customer team entirely?
I feel like it, if they decided to do that, it would be a privateer team. I could see somebody from the Asian Le Mans series
Yep.
jumping up from their LMP2 prototypes to Hypercar. I don't think it would be a very competitive car, to be honest. I think the reason why Toyota is doing so well is because Gazoo Racing is there around them. Um, but yeah, I would love to see it. The more the competition, the better. I don't know if WEC would allow it because we have Aston Martin coming in with two cars. We have so many manufacturers wanting to join Hypercar, and a third one from Toyota is probably not the most enticing thing in the world for WEC. They would rather have new manufacturers, competitive new manufacturers. So yeah, interesting thought, but right now I don't see it happening, at least in 2025. But it also depends on what the future brings in terms of new manufacturers for Hypercar.
Yeah, that's true. Because I mean, there's quite a bit of manufacturers that want to join. I mean, Aston Martin, of course, are confirmed to join. They will likely join, with the WEC potentially moving to a two-car mandate for each manufacturer. That could potentially swing things. I mean, Isotta Fraschini and Lamborghini and Cadillac are expected to all receive an additional car. Isotta Fraschini potentially adding on a third customer car in the future as well, according to certain rumors. Aston Martin with two Valkyries potentially entering in. Then there's also Van Wall, who's potentially returning to the WEC in the future. I've been hearing some rumors over that, and I got some exciting just thoughts from that, and exciting conversations, which I won't share, of course. But Van Wall potentially interested in a future return. But the question is there enough space? And that goes back to the Toyota, the third GR010. I don't think there's going to be enough space for it, although it would be great. And if the GR010, if there's going to be three hypercars from Toyota, I would hope to see the number 9 Toyota return, because this is a car that the Toyota has badged one of their TS020s, TS050s, as the number 9 car in the past. And with Ferrari now having 3 cars, Porsche having up to 7 cars at Le Mans, which is absolutely insane, but awesome at the same time. Toyota needs more cars to challenge for overall victory, and so it would be cool to have a number 9 car potentially as a 7, 8, and 9. Although we have this year, we have the number 9, I believe, Proton Competition LMP2 entering the grid. But yeah, that can't happen this year, of course. But if it does, it would be cool. I mean, if it does in the future, it would be cool to have the number 9 Toyota return to the WEC. Anyway, though, we do need to end the stream off. We're over about an hour and 30 minutes. I want to make sure it's not too long, of course. We could go on and on for hours, me and David, talking about endurance racing. It's our passion, and that's why that's one of the reasons why we're doing these live streams, to continue the passion and to get you all together to talk endurance racing and discuss everything when it comes to motorsport on the WEC and IMSA and endurance racing in general, of course. But David, again, thank you so much for joining me for this live stream, and we will most definitely see you back here for the future live streams. We have plans. There's definitely going to be some exciting live streams, as we have mentioned so far, coming in the future.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. And you can catch our next live stream most likely for the 6 Hours of Spa and Laguna Seca events. We will likely be doing 2 live streams for the next 2 events coming up in the WEC. That's going to be at the start of May, I believe, the second week of May. A lot of exciting times coming up. May and June are definitely the hot spot when it comes to endurance racing. And in terms of YouTube content, I've just released the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach race preview format. So if you want to see our discussions here kind of minimized into one video format, I suggest checking out that video. And then later this week, I will be coming out with the 6 Hours of Imola race race review as well. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. So we have Long Beach out as well, and we have Imola coming out, I believe, maybe tomorrow, maybe on Friday. We'll see how that all works out. And of course, a lot of content coming next week and the week after and so forth. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, again, thank you, David, for coming on. Thank you all so much for joining us here in the live stream. And you have a great day. And let's continue to watch the endurance racing action unfold for the rest of the 2024 season. So I'm Jonah, that's David, and we're signing off.